July 15. God warning you about someone whose name starts with M. Do not skip. There are moments in life when the voice of God doesn't thunder from the clouds, it whispers within. July 15 is not just another day. It is a divine checkpoint, a moment carved in spirit where the unseen becomes felt. If you've been feeling unsettled about someone whose name begins with the letter M, this is not your imagination. This is your higher consciousness alerting you. You are not being paranoid, you are being protected. The divine speaks through hunches, resistance, and spiritual impressions before it ever manifests in the physical. Do not dismiss the signs. That strange tension in your chest, the way your peace disappears around them, the patterns that feel too aligned to be coincidence, all of it is God warning you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. There is something about this person, this connection, that is not in alignment with your next level. And unless you awaken now, unless you obey the inner voice, you will invite unnecessary delay and spiritual damage. God's protection often comes disguised as discomfort. This is not the time to doubt it. This is the time to listen, to let go, and to trust the inner warning before it becomes a storm. July 15 is your turning point. Do not skip it. The spiritual alarm. Why God warns you before the storm. There is a sacred mechanism within you that most ignore until it's too late. It's not loud, it's not theatrical, and it doesn't demand attention like the chaos of the world. It's subtle, consistent, and divinely precise. This mechanism is your intuition, and when God wants to protect you, he speaks through it. July 15 is not just another day on the calendar. It is a spiritual checkpoint where your discernment must rise above your emotional attachments. If someone in your life, whose name begins with the letter M, has been causing you confusion, uncertainty, or inner unrest, this is your sign. This is not about judgment, hatred, or revenge. This is about alignment. When God gives you a warning, especially about a person, it is never to stir paranoia. It is to wake you up from the dream before it becomes a nightmare. You see, God does not force anything. He reveals, he nudges, he shows you what is hidden beneath the mask. And when you are still enough to receive it, you are already ahead of the trouble. The person whose name starts with M may appear kind, may speak sweetly, may even help you in certain moments, but watch the patterns. Watch how your energy shifts after speaking to them. Watch how doors that were once open begin to close quietly in your life since their presence became frequent. Watch how your mind, once clear, now battles confusion, doubt, and fog. God doesn't always remove people instantly, but he will slowly peel back their disguise until you can no longer unsee what is true. This warning is not about panic, it's about power. Because if the enemy can't get to your destiny, he'll try to get to the people around it. He'll send manipulators in the disguise of friends, dream killers wrapped in affection, and spiritual distractions dressed as support. And if you aren't tuned in, if you ignore the signs, you'll pay the price not with money, but with your peace, your energy, and your calling. You must understand this. Every person carries a frequency, and while you may be looking at words and appearances, heaven listens to vibration. When a person walks into your life and immediately your inner world becomes disturbed, you're not imagining it. You're receiving a broadcast from the divine. That unsettling feeling is not fear, it is the presence of misalignment. And if their spirit does not align with where God is taking you, he will begin to alert your senses, close the roads that lead to them, and disturb your comfort until you either listen or suffer the consequences of spiritual disobedience. You may want to give them the benefit of the doubt, and you may think your compassion can change them, but hear this clearly. It is not your job to rescue someone God is trying to remove. The enemy knows how to study your emotional patterns. He knows what you're drawn to, what you fear losing, and what you feel responsible for. And often the letter M, in this case, could represent more than just a name. It could be a mirror to a moment, a memory, or a message you need to confront. This is not just about that person. It's about what their presence activates within you. Maybe M makes you feel needed, and you confuse that need with love. Maybe M brings drama, and you confuse that chaos with passion. Maybe M feeds your insecurity, and you confuse that power play with strength. But God is not fooled. He sees what you can't, and he is now exposing what you've been trying to rationalize. There's a reason this message found you on this exact day. You have been praying for clarity, asking for signs, begging for peace, and God is answering through this divine interruption. Do not minimize it. Do not brush it aside. You can no longer afford to entertain people who delay your promise, drain your purpose, and distort your perception. This is a spiritual war, and your soul is not a playground. It's time to set boundaries without apology. It's time to obey without needing validation. And it's time to detach from anyone who threatens your connection with God, even if they come wrapped in good intentions. Because good intentions do not equal divine alignment. You must be bold now. There is no more room for wavering. If you feel like you're losing yourself around this person, if your spiritual routine has crumbled since they entered your life, if your dreams have dimmed, your sleep disturbed, and your goals sabotaged, heed the warning. The delay you're experiencing is not punishment, it's interference. The confusion you feel is not indecision, it's a misalignment of spirits, and the moment you release the one God warned you about, clarity will rush in like a flood. Doors will open, energy will return, peace will reign, your vision will sharpen, and your next season will no longer be blocked by invisible warfare. Remember this truth: the enemy cannot curse what God has blessed. But if he can deceive you into attaching yourself to the wrong person, you will block the blessing by your own hand. That's why this warning is coming before the fall, because God is merciful. He sends the message before he sends the consequence. He gives you the knowing before he gives you the loss, and now you know. July 15 is not just another date. It is a divine pause where you are being asked to reevaluate, release, and realign. Someone whose name starts with M is not who they appear to be. This is your signal, your escape, your protection. Obey the warning and you step into elevation. Ignore it and you step into delay. This is not about judgment. It's about obedience. You are too close to your breakthrough to turn back now. The storm is not meant for you, but if you stay connected to what God is trying to remove, you will feel its force. Trust the whisper before it becomes a whirlwind. Let go of the distraction before it becomes destruction. God is speaking clearly now. Your spirit already knows what your heart is trying to deny. Don't wait for confirmation in the physical when the spiritual alarm has already sounded. This is your moment. Choose alignment, choose clarity, choose God, letting go before it hurts. God removes to rescue you. There is a sacred rhythm to divine timing, and in this rhythm there comes a moment when God begins to remove what no longer belongs in your life, not to punish you, but to preserve you. July 15 is not just a date. It is a turning point for your spirit, a line in the sand where your obedience will determine your outcome. When God is warning you about someone, especially someone whose name begins with the letter M, it is because something unseen has already shifted in the spirit. You may not see the danger yet. You may still be entangled in the memories, the history, or the illusion of potential. But deep within, something is already breaking. Something feels off. The peace you used to have is slowly being replaced with confusion, anxiety, or emotional fatigue. That is the gentle way God begins his removal through discomfort, not because he wants to hurt you, but because he refuses to allow you to destroy yourself with something that looks good, but is secretly working against you. God never removes without reason. He never warns without purpose. And right now, if he is pointing you away from him, you must not ignore the shift. Letting go does not always mean something went terribly wrong. Sometimes letting go is God's way of making space for something greater. But most people resist the removal process because they are emotionally attached to what they prayed for, not realizing that just because you prayed for it doesn't mean it came from him. God's blessings come with peace, and if M entered your life with chaos, confusion, or spiritual conflict, it is not a blessing. It is a distraction. You were not created to beg for peace, fight for attention, or constantly explain yourself to someone who was never designed to walk your path. When God allows distance to form between you and a person, you must pay attention. He is not always going to explain why. He will not always show you their heart. But he will give you signs, sleepless nights, spiritual unrest, repeated red flags. And if you ignore them, you will not only delay your destiny, but you will also grieve something that could have been avoided. The problem is, many believers confuse loyalty with spiritual stubbornness. They stay attached to someone simply because they've known them for years, or because they shared vulnerable moments, or because they feel responsible for their healing. But you were never meant to play savior in someone else's story. If M is not healing, growing, or changing with you, then your presence will not save them. It will only drain you, and God knows this. That's why he's slowly closing the doors, drying up the conversations, and removing the emotional pull you once felt. Because your spirit has already moved forward, even if your heart is still looking back. Letting go hurts, but staying with the wrong person hurts even more. One pain is temporary, the other creates long-term delay and spiritual damage. God would rather break your heart now than allow you to destroy your calling later. Every time God calls you higher, he also exposes who can't come with you. That's what July 15 is about. You've been asking for clarity, you've been praying for purpose, and now he's showing you who is blocking it. Not because they're evil, but because they're no longer aligned with where you're headed. Every destiny has a direction, and every person is not equipped to walk with you in that direction. If they don't feed your soul, if they don't support your growth, if they mock your spiritual hunger, then they are not for you. God removes what you're afraid to release. He detaches you from what you're clinging to in fear. Not to leave you empty, but to fill you with what's true, pure, and lasting. This is spiritual surgery. It doesn't feel good, but it saves your life. You may be thinking, but they weren't all bad. Or they helped me during a tough season, or I feel a strong connection to them. And all of that may be true, but here's what you must understand. Not everything good is God-ordained, and not every connection is meant to last forever. Some people were only meant to be seasonal mirrors, to show you what needed healing, to reflect the parts of you that still settled, and to push you closer to your spiritual awakening. Once their purpose is complete, their presence must shift. And if you try to hold on after that purpose has expired, what once felt like a blessing will start to feel like bondage. You'll begin to feel heavy, out of place, and spiritually stuck. That's not because God abandoned you, it's because he's calling you out of the familiar into the divine unknown. And that can't happen unless you release what he's warning you about. God removes to rescue. His removals are not rejection, they are redirections. He is never trying to deprive you. He is trying to protect you. You may feel like you're losing someone important, but what you're really gaining is yourself, your peace, your power, your clarity, your connection with God. When you obey the divine prompting to walk away, you clear space for divine partnerships, authentic love, and the next level of your calling. You stop shrinking to fit into someone else's dysfunction, and you finally rise into who you were created to be. You will never regret letting go of someone God never sent, but you will regret staying too long in a space that slowly suffocated your spirit. And don't expect closure. Don't expect them to understand your decision. Don't expect a neat ending. Obedience often feels one-sided, but you don't need their permission to walk away when God has already given you revelation. You don't need a dramatic exit. Sometimes the most powerful move is the quiet one. The decision you make in private to protect your peace, honor your spirit, and follow God's voice without needing external validation, that's spiritual maturity, that's power, that's protection. July 15 is not about fear, it's about freedom. You've seen enough, you've felt enough, you've prayed enough, now it's time to trust enough. Letting go is not weakness, it is worship. It says to God, I trust you more than I trust my emotions. I believe in your plan more than I believe in this connection. I release what you never intended me to carry. And when you release the person whose presence has become a weight, heaven responds with favor. You may not see it immediately, but soon the heaviness will lift, the confusion will clear, and the doors that refuse to open will swing wide. Why? Because obedience breaks every barrier. Surrender sets you free. And release always precedes reward. So if God is warning you about someone whose name starts with M, don't wait for confirmation in the natural. The spiritual signs are already there. Your inner world knows what your outer world is trying to delay. Trust the release, trust the removal, trust the rescue, because God never takes without the intention to give greater. Your future is too valuable, your calling is too divine, and your spirit is too sacred to waste on anything or anyone that threatens your peace. Let go and watch what heaven does next, the power of inner knowing. When God speaks through discomfort, there is a divine intelligence within you that has never been wrong. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand. It whispers, it stirs, it nudges your spirit in the quiet places where words are not needed. This is the voice of God not outside of you, but within you, speaking in the language of knowing. And when something or someone doesn't sit right in your soul, it is not just a feeling to brush off. It is a message, a sacred transmission from the heavens coded in discomfort. July 15 stands as a divine portal, a checkpoint of spiritual clarity where you are being summoned to trust your inner knowing above every external appearance. And if that discomfort keeps rising around someone whose name starts with M, then your spirit is already aware of what your mind is trying to negotiate. God never sends discomfort without cause, and He never asks you to walk blindly into harm once the veil has been lifted. This discomfort is not your enemy, it is your alarm system. Too often we pray for clarity while ignoring the ways clarity shows up. We want signs in the sky, voices from burning bushes, angelic visitations. But the most consistent way God speaks is through your peace, or the lack of it. Peace is the spiritual compass. When it vanishes in someone's presence, that is not something to ignore. That is divine caution. It is not fear, it is not paranoia, it is spiritual discernment in action, and if every time you think of them, speak with them, or consider walking deeper into relationship with them, your energy shifts negatively, take that seriously. God is speaking, not in sentences, but in silence, in inner tension, in a divine unease that says, "This is not right for you." You may not be able to explain why. You may not have the physical proof. But the discomfort is your evidence. The mind wants reasons. The soul wants relief. You can reason your way into keeping the wrong people in your life, but your soul will never stop aching for alignment. That ache is the evidence that something is spiritually incompatible. M may not have done anything obvious. They may even seem like they care. But if God is showing you, in dreams, through strange energy, through repeated delays or emotional exhaustion, that something is off, it's because your soul already recognizes what your eyes can't yet see. That's why you feel what you feel, not because you're weak, but because you're aware, not because you're overthinking, but because you're spiritually awake. And spiritual awareness comes with responsibility, the responsibility to trust what your inner self already knows to be true. You must understand this. Discomfort is often disguised as divine protection. When God wants to redirect you, He doesn't always slam the door. Sometimes He lets it stay open just long enough to test your trust. Will you choose the comfort of familiarity or the clarity of alignment? That choice is before you now. July 15 is not just about recognizing a warning. It's about having the courage to obey it. Your destiny is too costly to gamble on someone whose energy feels like a contradiction to your peace. Every time you override your discomfort to make someone else comfortable, you betray your inner truth, and each betrayal moves you further from the divine protection that was designed to shield your next season. Do not underestimate the cost of spiritual compromise. It rarely appears instantly. It unfolds slowly. Missed opportunities, draining conversations, strange conflicts, mental fog, and delayed progress. And by the time you realize what has happened, you are entangled in a web that could have been avoided had you listened to that first inner nudge. That's why the discomfort is rising now. God is giving you another chance to exit, another moment to trust your knowing before the damage becomes visible. This is not rejection, this is rescue. This is the divine clearing a path for something greater, but you cannot step into what's next while clinging to what no longer belongs. What would happen if you trusted your knowing instead of trying to silence it? What doors would open if you simply honored the discomfort and walked away? You would feel your energy return. Your creativity would spark again. Your focus would sharpen, you would sleep better, you would see clearer, because when you remove what grieves your spirit, your soul rejoices. Your mind may cry, but your soul will sing. And that is when you'll realize the discomfort wasn't your enemy. It was your deliverance. You were never being punished, you were being purified. That person was a test, and the discomfort was your cheat code. Don't make the mistake of thinking discernment is judgment. You are not judging him. You are discerning the vibration, the energy, the spiritual charge they carry. Discernment is not about condemnation, it's about preservation, and when someone's presence keeps lowering your vibration, stalling your growth, or clouding your clarity, you are not being harsh by walking away, you are being holy. You are protecting the sacred, you are honoring the light within you that God placed there for a reason. When you trust that light, you will never walk in darkness. You don't need to wait for betrayal to confirm the warning. You don't need another confusing conversation, another broken promise, another wave of anxiety. God has already shown you what you need to see, not through evidence, but through essence. That essence is enough. That feeling is enough. That spiritual resistance is enough. Your soul does not lie, and if God has placed discomfort in your heart about this person, then trust that it is His mercy in motion. God is not asking you to understand everything. He's asking you to trust what He's already revealed in your spirit. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are not being dramatic. You are being called, and the discomfort is your divine summons to shift. M may not understand. Others may question your decision. But when you trust the knowing, heaven responds with release, with favor, with flow. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. You only owe God your obedience, so today choose to honor the discomfort, let it lead you, let it free you, let it guide you out of entanglement and into expansion. July 15 is your wake-up call, not to fear, but to trust. Not to mourn, but to move. The discomfort is not here to torment you. It's here to elevate you. Let it go. You already know what to do. Now do it with boldness, with clarity, and with faith. Your next level is waiting on the other side of your inner yes. Obey the knowing. It's never wrong when delay is divine. Why God blocks certain relationships for your protection. Sometimes what feels like rejection is really redirection. And what seems like delay is actually divine intervention. When you find yourself questioning why something hasn't progressed, why the connection with someone, especially someone whose name starts with M, isn't flowing the way it once did or the way you hoped, it's easy to blame yourself, to wonder what went wrong, or to feel like God is withholding something good from you. But on this sacred day of July 15, the truth must be unveiled. God is not punishing you, He is protecting you. Not all delays are denial, some delays are shields, heavenly barriers constructed in the invisible realm to keep you from walking headfirst into a relationship that could detour your destiny. You may feel frustrated, confused, even betrayed by the silence or the distance that's now forming. But look closer. This isn't chaos, it's calibration. God is shifting the path beneath your feet to lead you away from what your heart wants and toward what your spirit needs. And if you ignore the signs, if you force what was meant to fall away, you risk walking into a season burdened by unnecessary pain. There is a truth that many overlook. God sees what you cannot. He hears the conversations you're not present for. He sees the intentions masked behind words. He discerns the energy behind the smile. And while you may be charmed by M's presence, God is examining the alignment of their spirit. If it does not match the frequency of where He's taking you, He will block the bond. He will stall the progress. He will allow things to not work without ever showing you why. Because sometimes the why would hurt more than the no. You think you're ready for the next step with this person. But God knows what they would do to your future, your peace, your divine assignment. He knows what doors would close if you stayed connected. He knows what dreams would die slowly in their presence. So in His mercy, He delays. Not to break your heart, but to save it from a greater devastation, and still many resist. You might keep chasing, texting, calling, over-explaining, trying to fix the broken rhythm. You try to rekindle what's clearly being unraveled. But the more you push, the more distant M becomes, and this is not a sign that you are failing. This is evidence that God is working. The distance is divine, the silence is sacred. The unanswered messages, the cancelled plans, the lack of clarity, these are not coincidences. These are alarms, sirens from the spirit realm warning you. Let go before you get caught in a storm that was never meant for you. You may have imagined a future with this person. You may have assigned them a role in your destiny. But if God is removing them from the script, then trust He's writing something better. Too often, delay feels like abandonment. You look around and see others thriving in their relationships, progressing in love, walking hand in hand with their person. And yet you're stuck in waiting, questioning, wrestling, hoping. But what if this wait is a womb? What if this stillness is not punishment, but preparation? God is not just trying to save you from heartbreak. He's positioning you for legacy. You're not just being protected from bad people. You're being preserved for divine purpose. And purpose requires purity of heart, of intention, of alignment. If M contaminates that purity, even subtly, then the delay is evidence that heaven is watching closely. You may think you can handle it. You may believe you can change them, fix them, pray them into transformation, but it's not about your strength. It's about divine strategy. God does not bless unions that interfere with His vision. And He will not allow your emotions to override His will without warning you first. That's what July 15 represents, a spiritual checkpoint, a holy pause, a moment where you must decide, will you continue to fight for a relationship God has clearly paused? Or will you surrender, trust, and align yourself with the higher plan? Every moment you spend resisting the divine delay, you are feeding confusion, prolonging healing, and missing the blessing that's waiting beyond the release. Understand this, the person whose name starts with them may not be evil, but they may not be meant for the next phase of your life. They may have served a purpose. Maybe they woke something up in you, helped you see your worth, or taught you a lesson. But now the assignment is complete, and holding on longer than you should is like wearing clothes that no longer fit. It's uncomfortable, it restricts you, it prevents growth. God is tailoring something new for you, but He cannot dress you in destiny while you're still clothed in delay. You must undress from the past, you must release the familiar, you must walk away from what's unfinished so that something complete can finally begin. Delay also purifies your motives. Are you desiring M because of true spiritual alignment, or because of fear of loneliness, unmet expectations, or unresolved emotional wounds? When God delays, it gives you space to confront the truth about your desires. It's not always about them. Sometimes it's about what they represent inside of you, and once you heal that, the attachment fades. You realize that what you were begging God to bless was actually a substitute for something far more powerful He wants to give you. Don't mistake comfort for calling. Don't let desire drown out discernment. The delay is the space where your heart detoxes from emotional illusions and becomes ready to receive what's truly divine. So let July 15 be the day you stop resisting the delay and start revering it. Let it be the day you stop forcing a connection that God has already unplugged. Stop rehearsing the fantasy. Stop rewriting the red flags into fairy tales. If the door won't open, don't kick it down. Thank God it's locked. If the person won't stay, don't beg. Bless them and let them go, because the moment you make peace with divine delay, peace will return to you, energy will return, your dreams will flow again, your joy will expand. Why? Because delay was never the problem. Your resistance was. The moment you surrender, the blessing begins. So yes, God blocked it. Yes, God delayed it. Yes, God disrupted your plans, but not because He's cruel. Because He's deeply in love with your destiny. Because He knows what you need before you do. Because He will never let your craving override your calling. The delay is a gift. It's a shield. It's the pause before the promise. Honor it. Embrace it. Trust it, because when the right person arrives, when alignment flows like water, when love feels like peace, when destiny recognizes destiny, you'll look back at this moment and thank God that He didn't let you settle. You'll realize the delay wasn't denial, it was direction, and your obedience was the bridge that carried you into divine love, divine favor, and divine fulfillment. Obedience is your protection. Heed the warning before it's too late. There is a sacred weight to obedience that most people overlook. They want the promise, the blessing, the open door, but they ignore the still, quiet voice that says, not this, not now, not them. On this spiritually significant day of July 15, you must understand something deeper than emotion, louder than logic, and more urgent than opinion. God is warning you for a reason, and your obedience is your only shield. When the Spirit places an uneasiness in your soul, especially concerning someone whose name begins with the letter M, that is not an accident, that is not fear, that is God Himself sounding the alarm. You were never meant to question the voice of discernment simply because you can't prove it with your eyes. The spiritual world works in frequencies, feelings, impressions, dreams, and inner discomforts. And when you ignore those sacred signals, you place yourself in unnecessary harm. God is not trying to hurt you. He's trying to rescue you before the damage comes, but rescue always requires your cooperation. And in this moment, your obedience to walk away, to distance yourself, or to stay still may be the very act that saves your life, your calling, or your destiny. Disobedience does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels as harmless as one more call, one more meeting, one more conversation, one more chance given to someone you already know is not aligned with your growth. The deception of delay is subtle. The danger of ignoring God's whisper is that the consequence often shows up slowly. First, it comes as confusion, then as spiritual fatigue, then as strange attacks, dry seasons, broken focus, and closed doors. You won't even realize you've stepped out of alignment until you're surrounded by chaos that once felt avoidable. And then you'll remember that one feeling, that one moment, that one nudge that told you, let go. You see, obedience is not just about following rules. It's about protecting your peace, guarding your future, and keeping your spiritual vibration clean. That person you're unsure about, the one whose name starts with M, may not be doing anything visibly wrong. But if God is warning you, that's all you need to move. Stop asking for more signs when the sign is already within you. Stop waiting for the betrayal to become obvious, the deception to explode, or the relationship to collapse. The warning has already come. The more you delay your obedience, the more room the enemy has to operate. God doesn't just give warnings for dramatic effect. He gives them because something in the invisible realm has already shifted. And He needs your immediate response to prevent the assignment from being aborted. If your peace has been disturbed, if your thoughts have been clouded, if your dreams have been darkened since engaging more deeply with M, that's your confirmation. The fruit doesn't lie. If it's producing anxiety, jealousy, confusion, obsession, emotional exhaustion, then it is not from God. And if it's not from God, then your only responsibility is to let it go. The danger of emotional attachment is that it can blind you to divine signals. You may start to justify what your spirit is rejecting. You may say, they're not that bad, or maybe I'm just being too sensitive. But God does not operate through denial. He operates through clarity. If clarity is absent, it's because the connection is corrupted. You cannot ask God to protect you while refusing to walk away from what He's already warned you about. That is spiritual contradiction. That is self-sabotage. You're not being punished. You're being preserved, but preservation requires movement. It requires discipline. It requires the maturity to say, even if I don't understand why, I trust that God sees what I can't, and I will obey, even if it hurts. Think about how many times you asked God for breakthrough, for elevation, for purpose, for clarity, and now that He's revealing the obstacle standing in the way, this person, this connection, this spirit wrapped in familiarity, you hesitate. But remember, delay is not neutral. Every day you spend entertaining someone God is removing is a day you are postponing your next level. You don't need a dramatic ending to let go. You don't need a perfect reason. The whisper is enough, the warning is enough, obedience is your exit. The door God is closing might not slam shut. It might just quietly stop opening. That's your cue. Don't miss it. July 15 marks a spiritual turning point for you. It is a divine checkpoint where heaven is watching your response. Will you keep trying to negotiate your way into a place God has told you to leave? Or will you take the leap of faith and trust that the void your obedience creates will be filled by something far greater than what you left behind? God does not remove without restoring. but the restoration does not come until after the release. If you still have them on your mind, if their energy still clings to your spirit, if your heart still aches to stay connected, pause and ask yourself, is this God's will or just my attachment? You will know by the fruit if you've lost yourself, your joy, your clarity, or your vision since connecting with them. Then you already have your answer. There is a supernatural protection that surrounds those who obey without hesitation. When you listen to the nudge, when you honor the discomfort, when you act on what you spiritually know before it becomes painfully obvious, God elevates you. He clears the path. He sends favor. He replaces the counterfeit with the authentic. But he cannot fill what you refuse to empty. He cannot give you more if your hands are clinging to less. And this is what July 15 is about, the decision to unclench your fists, to silence your emotions, and to step into radical obedience. You don't need their permission. You don't need closure. You don't need understanding. You need to obey, because obedience is your covering. You are not being dramatic. You are not being unkind. You are not walking in fear. You are walking in wisdom. Wisdom says, even if I don't have all the answers, I will trust the God who knows the beginning from the end. Obedience says, even if I don't see the danger, I will trust the warning. And faith says, even if I feel the loss, I believe in the reward. Your future is too valuable to gamble on a relationship God is clearly cautioning you about. Your purpose is too sacred to compromise for the sake of emotional convenience. May have been a lesson, a moment, a mirror, but they were not meant to be your foundation. This is your moment. This is your wake-up call. This is the whisper becoming a trumpet. God has been speaking. Your spirit has been listening. Now it's time to act. July 15 is not just another day. It is the day your obedience writes a new chapter. Heed the warning, release what no longer serves your calling, and walk boldly into the safety, clarity, and elevation that only obedience can unlock. Let go, not in fear, but in faith, for when you obey the whisper, you escape the storm.